lost legion. Your name return. There was a YouTuber named Eric J. He is implying that he is an Eric Jensen, and he said that I should do a news article about Wethersfield. I should ask people questions. This is a person that he's implying to be is an Eric Jensen who lived on Dearborn Street or Dearborn Road in Newington when he went to high school in Wethersfield. And he lived on that street. I forgot his name. There's it starts with a D. Lapriato starts with an L. Dominic Lapriato. There's a murder in Alaska tied to that. There's a lot of, and also tied to across the street from Sal Cerviolo. Years ago, Eric Jensen said he had ties to Sal Cerviolo one time. I only saw it was like they all made confessions about what they had been involved with when they were in high school. Like I knew Eric Jensen only from a class, but before that I had met him through my neighbor, which his cousins had been attending. Had been in conversations with me through time. One of them reportedly lives near a grammar school with some upskirt natures. Also, they caught themselves when some untimely deaths connected to them were confessed to me. See, what happened, they were involved with a database and evidence rackets since they were kids with police. And now they're adult police, and they're predators on children and elderly. With the sciences and how as they were victims first. So they're victim predators by a breaching method. They're breaching nature. Evidence, live progression, cover-up natures. And we're going to see that this is how CT is cherry tree. In other words, this had George Washington extorted because internation sciences were already entrenched in Connecticut before the birth of George Washington. Right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, he had to counter-extort. He had to meet with the French ally general in Wethersfield, Connecticut, in the Hartford area, and counter-extort what had him extorted through here, internation sciences. In other words, they had England extorted. They had the leaders of every nation extorted. They had the leaders of Spain extorted. In other words, they had them playing faces with what was internation, but they had it playing it through kings. In other words, it was an extortion. This is what it was a fact of our fact treatment nature, and this is what holy books together are multi-front counters to, as multi-criminal counter insidiousness nature, unless interpreted properly. And with what they're demonstrating, which is ratiocination. The proper nature of the Campus Martius Internation Sciences was denatured, and that denatures the proper nature of humanity, which is a fact treatment nature. Space is a fact treatment nature unto itself, like its identity, as ours is in demonstration of this, and as ours is shared in demonstration of this, not just as a species body, but as the rest of Earth with no criminal persuasions, only by the overall system. And that, staying that, causes inherent active and progressive, positive value nature progression in relationship to itself. Positive. And then what will not allow that to stay positive onto itself is pushed away from here, lethal Hadith. And so we have what is claimed law that is dishonest and is wrought with delusions and is wrought with a method that had justifications of fact treatment natures, of fact treatments that are perpetually incapable of defending that and of countering a nature of criminal insidiousness and of means to it through our areas, all leaders. Bottom up, with the streets, hurt through the campuses and the areas first, and then the sciences, so then the campuses, and we're tied to it with the businesses, and even the businesses of the branches. This is how, with colonization, they were motivated to such sick laws. In other words, no one knew what to explain it as, because they had the science, it had the areas allied to this first, then the sciences, then rolls with that, and then all that juxtaposed with live progression cover-up needs, measured, standing misprising criminalities, fact treatment styles of different people sharing means and needs to get away with hiding lies, delusions, premises, and criminal intonation persuasions, and with styles. So this is what original colonial and early American corruption came from. Motivations for roles with things like slavery, which was never charged because we never had agencies capable of charging their own roles with that, because they're still defending forced market position, forced shared policing that was originally here before our founders. Still extorted, still counter-extorted. They only could counter-extort this here in Connecticut. CT is cherry tree. James Madison didn't have free speech even after the Constitutional Convention. Even in his case, Marbury versus Madison, which real justice is only must satisfy the appearances of real justice always. That means it must not make it up and hide in the background, and have roles with that, measured progressively through time, breaching nature roles, because then it has to defend that. Now we have everyone trying to pretend like there's credibility to a system with no stability, and then that's why and this is why there's progressions with nations in conflict. Every nation has the same enemy forced to these market positions unstable. That's why our state still owe money after we never owned itself after all these years. That's why they still put up the topic like it's a physical thing, like it was only against black people. And black is a color that anyone has the skin color of, or white. This is a fact treatment, degradation, abridgment method of the Constitution through the campuses. Before that, through the areas, and they juxtapose the need to tell the same finite body of value and top-down lies, and to all positions, to the area, streets, in relationship to the nature. We have a denatured relationship to the landscape. Slavery was against everybody. Everyone who's taught to be a color, like they play those games. In other words, they had laws against, if you even met to discuss building infrastructure outside of internation monitor database relationships, then it was very scary. They hurt. Even just found out to be talking about stuff like that. So in other words, everyone was a slave. There was no color or anything like that was not a slave. And the people with money, too, slave. In other words, and only compare, because it was a breaching method that was conscious that were doing this. They were building identities of value, all ulterior to the one, that with and as a positive relationship to onto itself, which is an active correlation. This is a method, an organized crime method against correlation, against fact treatment nature. Space's identity is a fact treatment nature as our own, as positive relationship to itself, which is only positive and negative. See, now we have nations top down, right to left, forced negative. So, and justifications of that put body of value, negative. Inherently, it makes a negative value nature relationship to ourselves, our identity, which is inherently, actively, and progressively of value to us in demonstration of this. Our semi-memory is a lasting memory of space nature, which is only perfecting its value onto itself. in diffusion, as we are a quality of diffusion as either positive or negative, and we're only neutral to that, inherently, actively, and progressively. And this is the course of these cartoons and of. So, this is also an organized crime with database relationships and with evidences rackets. So they also recorded themselves. In other words, this is also from the 9/11 context. These are federal criminals that weren't proven federal criminals yet, and they were union guys. And my father was a labor union lead, but he was running to be a higher leader. And they do all these tricks because, in other words, back in the day, used to have all they knew, and they have internation criminal enterprises with our areas juxtaposed in relationship to the forced negotiations with criminally legalized criminal enterprise nature, criminal insidiousness natures of international agencies. And forced, we have to defend the same market's positions and policing of it, so they can't give away each other's positions. I'm not. You have to be. So in other words, I think probably declassified, but it's common sense that we have internation police here originally state, and this is in relationship to them too, with undercover, with things like with like KKK, and with like the other Latin groups, and with the schools and with the videos they show the kids, because they're originally just entertained as a breaching nature. In other words, we had no police, we had no legal representation. That's why we're still in these homes that were not only forced by those terror laws with the internation monitor database relationships, couldn't even talk about building it. It was also, we were forced into these homes it was before cars were even built, and we're still in it. They forced the water underground, forced the denatured relationship to nature, knowing, not only so they could control our seeds and control all the, our value nature system, but so they could control our fact treatment nature. Because if you have a denatured relationship to nature, nature demonstrates with negative value nature progressions. In ancient revelations, in actual understanding in nature revealed by the internation sciences, by nation sciences before their criminal persuasion, before they were hurt and tricked, denatured relationship to this, and it was denatured. Then they understood that, in other words, what causes positive value nature progressions. And this is the nature of Campus Marcius that was lost, that was denatured, criminally denatured. And to stay, in other words, they knew that nature itself has only one overall system, and it will continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions as long as we. In other words, they made these homes top down. They realized they were going to make the long term to build the top down buildings. Everyone denatured, separated from nature, and nature itself was going to keep causing negative value nature progressions. Why would they want that? Because they're measuring it. That's a part of they invest that too, because now it's on an ulterior value nature system. So what they're doing is investing fact treatment natures to styles of abridgment justifications and passion justifications roles. That's why we have sick fast courts, and they're making mistakes, tons of them, more than they realize, because they're not honest with their passions to themselves and to others, because they were the victim predators. Everyone's hurt, but the evil that makes everyone hurt and makes everyone see stupid and blame it on the victims just makes more victims. The campus is the predator. The fact treatment nature, and so law is not going to work out for all the styles that pretend business is the way out of it. You know what I mean? See, and identities and titles that need to hide lies, delusions, premises, and criminal intonation persuasions. Up to date. Even getting this stuff wrong, it's not about by accident, because that's what the campus told. That's not an excuse. That's still a victim predator, a criminal insidiousness nature. Not letting in, especially urban kids, not having our American history breached in our faces. Some predatory, criminal insidiousness nature, summary convictions, and acts in our faces, and inactions, and exploitations of that on and off campuses, with predatory litigation nature. We never had leadership as legal nature. No one ever heard that voice of legal nature, of truth. CT is Cherry Tree. See Bench's Booth. See Cybertooth. No, so what we have to do is remember, is just admit, if a nation, any nation that can admit that, then could deal with what is internation, which fake sides everywhere, and it's going to frustrate and keep everyone, every nation top-down leader, entertaining pseudo stability, entertaining what has our state still owe money after all this time. It's not a joke, and we're still in the colonization, which is worse than slavery. That's what set it up as a method within a sick method on everybody. Everyone's a slave still, because they have our books. CT is Cherry Tree, but no one looks, because everyone's defending passions and guises and business lies and delusions, and needing to hide premises and criminal and intonation persuasions, and everyone has the law so hurt that the only answer is that everyone thinks in their head, you smash out. We're not going to hurt that way out. The only way out is to realize that we're criminally denatured. And this conversation where reality reveals that we left people forsaken. So all we have to do is address that and handle that. And making that better is going to force realizing what we are in the suburbs too. Totally denatured. This is the terror, crazy laws forced these home styles before we had cars. Unsafe. Not, everything denatured. Not even when it rained, used to be more worms coming out of the ground. Everything's getting denatured. Everything. We don't even have freshwater fish in stores. You could just leave them under the ground, they just fine. Proofs the beaver. The Native Americans knew that originally. There are three natures of relationship to the beaver, and the beaver showed the Native Americans the depths of the pond and realized. And they had, but the Garden of Eden is because all nations, internation sciences were originally united. What made everyone think that the world was flat and defend all these pseudo identities came before modern nations. It made all areas entertained with a criminal internation sciences as a criminal enterprise, and then they took over internation sciences. Then they made that were already controlled from the areas. Ulterior database with the devil's method, archetypal criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer, not a police force, not a criminal. But this is what it is. So there's some more child predators recorded tied to Joshua Julian. I never had a conversation with my life. I was in 3. This is also tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles and CCSU. Corruption with all kinds of with two KKK guys, I don't know, real or whatever. That's what they said when they were kids, and then some two twins Latin, and they were with the same girl. And they demonstrated this to me. I know a conversation with Tom Perone's sister, Danielle Perone. I had no conversation ever. One time she tried to set me with this kid too. Because in other words, She had 3 boyfriends at the same time. These people were recorded with the people tied to pretended fake conversations with me through time, all tied to my neighbor. These are all people I knew because they were tied to my neighbor first. And people tied in my classes, tied to people who weren't in my classes, pretending they were in my classes. People having 10-faced conversations, pretending they like me and knew me, have a conversation we never had. It's not true. Pretending they don't like me. In other words, there were evidences rackets, databases rackets, and then there were lie progression cover-ups tied to that, even including their roles recorded with crimes with the colleges and with the middle school and the high school and the grammar schools at the same time in intercity and through time. That's why they don't respond. That's why they don't do their job when I was a kid. And they're still not doing it now. They're still hiding the rest of the upskirt natures with the school. That's why they arrested me with lies, with guys already recorded themselves forging names before that to hide from related police reports. Confessions from strangers related to the rest of the detectives involved with the upskirt natures of the school. Because his police forms and court people also recorded with a pattern of online rape threats. Also recorded the database crimes and the connections between the evidence fabrication nature, predators in my classroom growing up. And